Welcome back and hello if you're new. Horrendous have slowly but surely been climbing their way up the death metal food chain. I was first introduced to the band on their magnificent ode to the old school death metal god that was Ecdysis or Ecdysis, I'm not entirely sure how you say it. The band have since improved on their formula, moving on to Anareta, but now in 2018 Horrendous return with what could well be their most progressive effort to date with Idol. Horrendous combined this old school death metal mentality in a modern day aesthetic. This is a record with Cynic's Focus era technicality and with the atmospheric evil of King Crimson's Red. Opening track Prescient sets the tone from the word go with a very ominous style bass introduction, which really does kind of make you feel like you are delving into these cavernous depths. And it makes for a very mysterious and incredibly unsettling prelude to Soothsayer. Overall, the track and the album has a fantastic 90s death metal feel, and a prime example is in the main verse section of Soothsayer. Ironically, despite the album being fairly regimented in its structure, it's also somewhat freeform, giving it a jazz feel. The Idolator is a perfect example of that, which opens with these beautiful cleans, but then midway through the track is turned on its head with the arrival of the main verse, where things go right back into death metal territory. Working in tandem with the drums, the bass line has also got a very prominent role on this album and somewhat kind of overtakes the guitar in a way, particularly on Golgothan Tongues or the opening passage of Divine Anhedonia, where the bass line kind of weaves in and out of the guitar riffs. However, the band also show various different facets of death metal, showing that they're not necessarily a one-trick pony. From the D-beat style drums of Entombed to the more sophisticated riffs that you may have seen on the likes of later Death, for example. Golgothan Tongues relies predominantly on the drummer and the bassist, and the same goes for Devotion Blood for Ink, where there's this fantastic grooving riff, but then the atmosphere is immediately changed when the drums change their pattern. And not to mention, there's a later section in the same track where the drums have this kind of like stop-start section and then these massive blasts come in. And weirdly enough, when listening to this album, there was this mysterious kind of brightness that kept appearing. A perfect example is the Idolator once more, or Golgothan Tongues. Which includes nimble guitar melodies and even clean singing. Yet none of this feels forced and everything feels incredibly natural. And it's precisely this understanding of light against dark that makes for Idol to be such a fantastic ride, which is perhaps best shown on the instrumental Threnody. There's a fantastic use of artificial harmonics on this track and really interesting chord melody that the band have employed as well. But this band are actually incredibly trickster. A prime example is the end of Divine Anhedonia, where I remember the first time I was listening to it, I thought the song had finished, and then they came in with this one further riff, and I was like, oh, that's actually really cool when you think about it. Nevertheless, as ever, it's the small details that really make the difference on Horrendous's material. And again, going back to Divine Anhedonia, there's this beautiful section where these octaves arrive and they almost sort of hang in the balance of the song, and it makes the overall melody reverberate throughout the track. And of course there are some absolutely fantastic solos on this album. The band understand how to play with melody and bring this brightness that I was talking about earlier on into a death metal aesthetic. All of this is then condensed into the final track, Obolus, which is just shy of 9 minutes and features all of the hallmarks that I've just talked about, and it's got this unnerving ending to it which just sees Horrendous kind of slink back into the shadows once more. And that's, I think, what I loved about the Horrendous the most, is that it has this vibe, this mystery about it. You know, it feels like this archaic being that's been awoken. Horrendous are very much a Jekyll and Hyde. On the one hand, you've got the 70s prog madness, but then on the other, the band have this Hyde mode where they can flip into death metal at a moment's notice. If you're a fan of the more progressive elements of 90s death metal a la Focus, then you'll find so much to love here. Horrendous have not only got something to give to their sound, but the genre of death metal itself. Insightful, creative, and delightfully obsidian, Idol is masterful. And for that reason, I'm going to give the record another 5 out of 5 stars. It's absolutely sensational, and again, definitely on that album of the year list. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like and subscribe button. Please make sure to check out all my other videos. Drop a comment. You can also check out my Apocalyptic Anniversary series over on Metal Sucks, which is up every week. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week for another album review. Alright, take care.